Alright guys, today, welcome to Aviation and Tech, and today we are going to be looking at the Boeing 737 MAX 8 and MAX 9 incidents. So we're going to cover three things. One, what happened in those incidents? Two, why did it need to be grounded? Why did it affect the whole fleet? And three, when and can we expect these planes, the Boeing 737 MAX 8 and 9, to appear in the air again? Let's head to the intro. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to search what? I've already searched it, so. Alright, so the thing that happened with the 737 MAX flights, there were two flights. One was an Ethiopian Airlines flight, and one was a Lion Air flight. We're going to be focusing on the Ethiopian Airlines flight. So let's go ahead and look at this. By the way, it was news as of just this week that Boeing has entirely stopped production of the Boeing 737 MAX products. So, I said in the intro that we might see it in the air again. We won't. They completely stopped production. I don't think they're going to unground it. So, yeah. Alright, so if we take a look at this map, this plane, Flight Echo Tango 302, was going to fly from Addis Ababa to Nairobi, so from Ethiopia to Kenya. And this was at night, so 6 minutes after takeoff, it crashed 30 miles southeast of the airport, near the town of Bishoftu. I think that's how I pronounced it. If I pronounced it wrong, I'm sorry. The impact was so great, so it hit the ground very hard. Both engines were buried at 32 feet in a crater, 28 meters wide and 40 meters long. So, with the preliminary report into the accident by Ethiopia's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, which is kind of like the NTSB in the U.S., that's the National Transportation Safety Board. This is the equivalent of that, and the NTSB investigates crashes within the U.S. And I think they were investigating these two because these were kind of international flights, international aircraft, and so they're looking at it. So after it took off, so these two sensors on either side of the nose of the plane that measure what the angle of attack is. And the angle of attack is what it's pointing up and down. So, if you look at this picture, you can see the angle of attack is, if you look at this, it's the angle up that it's pointing from the ground. So if this is the ground, where you can see my mouse, you can watch my mouse, then it has a negative angle of attack if the wing is pointing like that. It has a positive angle of attack. So that you understand what angle of attack means, you can understand that these sensors were taking conflicting readings. So you can see here, during the takeoff, so that's here, the sensors were fairly nominal. They were following each other. And then right when we get to here, which is about 8 minutes, 39 and 3/4 seconds, the left sensor goes totally bonkers, goes way up. So 60 degrees. So this angle that you see here is 60 degrees. So you can see, and 60 degrees is the maximum on this chart, and so you can see that it's like, because you see plus 60 degrees and negative 60 degrees, it was above that. And so it was high, and then it kind of dipped down a little bit, and then it dipped down a little bit, and then it went straight down, bounced back up a little bit, and then went straight down again. Now here with the right sensor, on the right side of the nose, you have this blue line, and it's pretty normal. It feels like you're flying pretty much straight. So the thing with the safety system is if one of the sensors reads that it's pointing, that it's too far up and therefore going too slow and may have a stall, then it will push the nose down. And so what happened is, if you look at this, it saw that the left sensor went way up here, and so it pushed the nose down multiple times. Now, with the computer system, if you look at this, you can shut the computer system off for a time, but it automatically re-engages after a little bit. So you can see the sensors in the nose measure the angle of flight, and then the horizontal stabilizer corrects the angle if too high, so that tilts the plane up and down. And then the nose pokes. So if you're tilted more than 10 degrees, and again we said 60 was that fairly large angle, you have a risk of a stall. If you have a false reading, so this is an example of a false reading, but in reality it's going straight, they may push the nose down anyway. Pilots can temporarily switch it off, like I said, but it'll restart. So, alright, so now if we take a look at this picture, here's the sensor. And there's one here, and there's one here that's kind of obstructed by the red tag there. But what you're seeing with that is that's the angle of attack sensor, and so that can tell you how high up and how high down you're pointing. Okay, we need to look at the struggle. Alright, so this switch, which is kind of obstructed over here, so we'll look at it over here, disables the MCAS, or we didn't cover what the MCAS was. Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. Yeah, we're going to stick with MCAS because that's hard to say. Okay. So to switch it off completely, like turn it off, these switches here both need to go down to the cutout place. Then you can manually adjust the wheel. So that's like a trim wheel. If you've ever flown a drone or a RC helicopter or anything, you have a trim wheel so that you can fly it straight up without it spinning around or hitting the ground or whatever. And it's similar on an airplane, so that the trim, and when the autopilot's on, the trim will adjust itself. So yeah, you'd have to manually adjust that, which they didn't. In a statement, the chief executive of Ethiopian Airlines said he was very proud of the pilot's high level of professional performance. So, yeah. And then, quote, it was very unfortunate they could not recover the airplane from the persistence of nosediving, end quote, the airline said in a statement. Boeing CEO Dennis Muilenburg acknowledged that an, quote, erroneous activation, end quote, of MCAS has occurred in both recent crashes. So now, if we look at so there are similarities between the vertical speeds, which is how quickly you're going up or down. So that's feet per minute, if you've ever seen feet per minute for anything. So they're very similar. So here's the Ethiopian Airlines flight. So it was up, nosedive, and then up a little bit, nosedive a little bit, up a little bit, nosedive a little bit, back up, nosedive almost totally, and then back up, and then nosedive a little bit, and then back up, and then it went straight. Now, if you look at this is an extremely similar graph. So if we zoom it out, that's a bit too far. Okay. Now if we look at this, look at how similar it is. It's up, nosedive, up, nosedive, up, nosedive, up, nosedive. So, let's go ahead and fix that. They're very similar. And so, they're, it's very likely that it was at this time very likely, now we know that for sure that it was true, that it was similar issues, which they are. Alright, so we don't need to cover in detail the Boeing 737 MAX. I can do another video on that, so we'll just skip this. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, let's go ahead and head to an outro. Alright, what's up guys? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like down below and consider subscribing to my channel. It really doesn't make a difference other than my number gets bigger. But, thanks for watching, and yeah.